Welcome to Soft Bites Podcast. Your life, your dentistry. We talk about ways to have more fun and meaning in one of the coolest and most rewarding professions in medicine. Conversations on how to bring awareness, create a healthy workplace, and provide emotional insights to make dentistry a fulfilling activity while making space for one's wonder, creativity, and freedom. Here are your hosts, Manuela and Jorge André.
All right.
Hello
Back.
everyone. After a long pause, we are back. How are you, Jorge André?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Glad to be back. Glad to be here with you, talking again. Our schedules have been a little bit we
Difficult.
could difficult, yeah. So it's been a long time. So it's nice to be back again.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk about the team again, and about something that I think it can can happen, and when you have a leadership role in a dental clinic. We are going to talk about having favorites in the team. Do you think this is something that happens often, or it's something that can be avoided easily? It's something that we can that maybe if you are in a leadership role, you can fall into this trap very easily, or not.
I think it's unavoidable. I think you will always have someone that you feel closer to, whether you like it or not, because we are all human, right? And you may feel, and you, of course, if you are in a team of 5, 10, 15 people, there are obviously going to be people that you get along better with. So that's obvious. Just because you find them more with the same vibe as you, or because you find they are more friendly to you, or I mean, there are many reasons why we feel more comfortable with some people
Mhm.
than with
I
others.
think it's human nature, like to like and connect more with some people than with others.
Yeah, and it's also sometimes it's just because they are of the same age, or because they have similar hobbies, they have the same vibe as you. I mean, there are so many, or you just find them cute or whatever, and there are so many reasons why you may feel more comfortable with some people. The question is what you do with that. That's the issue, right?
Mhm, mhm,
Because I think there's nothing wrong if you are a colleague, right? Because there are different roles here that we have to think. I mean, that one thing is if you are the leader of the team. The other thing is if you are a nurse or if you are an associate doctor. I mean, it's more than reasonable to have people that you get along better, right? And that is gonna be that's unavoidable. There will be within your dental nurses group, there will be two or three or four that are constantly together, or they are just eventually they sometimes have some activities outside the practice, and there's nothing you can do about that. Even still, I think that even as a colleague, even as a coworker, there are some things that you should be careful. For example, I tend to I tend to always my advice is to I'm not saying that you should not have friendships in your working environment. I think you should be cautious about that. And I don't think that you should be completely cold with people, but I think that you should be cautious about that. Now, the other thing is, which is probably the most serious one, is if you are a leader and you clearly show to the team that you have some people that are
mhm.
favorites.
So I think
Yeah,
that the thing here is, and like you were saying, it's normal if you have more, if you connect more to some people than with the others. But the thing here, and I think that when we talk about having favorites, is when you when that shows, when you give a person a preferential treatment over other, and that shows, and when that shows that that preference treatment is sometimes even unrelated to performance, but because you connect more with that person, so that's when it can
Yes.
become a problem.
And the source of gossip in the whole team, isn't it? Now, it's interesting what you said. It is because you have a favorite, and the reason is not because of performance. That's very interesting. But I think that even in terms of performance, you should not have favorites. You should have the most neutral attitude as possible. Saying that you should, it does not mean that it is easy, or that sometimes you don't make mistakes, and that sometimes that you don't have some issues, because you will have some issues for sure. You will do some mistakes. But yes, I think that there are two things that we could talk about. One thing is friendship or having favorites within coworkers or within assistants and within associate doctors, and the other thing would be as a leader. So, like I was saying, I tend to be a little bit old school here when it comes to friendships inside the workplace, and it's very if you talk to anyone that manages people that are in their 20s or their 30s, especially in their 20s, it's obvious they will create some sort of friendship bonding. But and I don't think that is avoidable, but this usually has some consequences, because whether you like it or not, sometimes small groups protect themselves within the organization. Um, and I think that like everything, you should be very careful who you share your personal things with. And one thing is outside work, where you deliberately choose the person that you wanna share the stuff, personal or whatever. But while you are in the working environment, sometimes it's tempting because you spend so much time with them. Sometimes it's very tempting to just gain a level of confidence that you just start to share personal stuff, right? And but the environment is completely different. One thing is going out and hanging with your friends, maybe going on vacation, going to parties, going to cafes. I mean, doing whatever. That's one thing. But you deliberately choose to be there, and usually the consequences, if something goes wrong within the relationship, uh, I mean, they are usually not, they don't influence other people. The problem is that within the working space, if you, let's imagine you, if you are a dental nurse, or if you're a doctor, you start to work in a place, you just bond with this girl or with this boy because you just find them cool. And all of a sudden, you just start to spend a lot of time together in the working place. I'm not even thinking about any sort of intimate relationship. That's not what we are talking about. I'm thinking about just friendship. And it's very easy because you spend so much time with that person. It's very easy to all of a sudden start to share a lot of your personal stuff. And we know how human relationships are. They are not usually rational, they are not always logical. And sometimes, when things don't go exactly as you planned, or because someone has a bad day, or this or that, sometimes, first of all, other people will notice that, and they whether you like it or not, they will start to look at you as someone that has a favorite within the team, and this creates imbalances. And there are an infinite ways of ways that this imbalance can reflect within the organization, with patients, or sometimes maybe your colleague just did something wrong, and you just cover that, or maybe someone is pointing a finger at your colleague, and whether you like it or not, you are naturally more prone to protect him or her. So there are so many things that can eventually create imbalances in the workplace, and I'm sure that many of your clients sometimes complain about that, about some things with their nurses, or this, or they Or I'm sure you have stories, and maybe it happened to yourself, of people that you have eventually told you that friendships gone wrong in the working place,
Mhm,
workplace.
mhm. Yeah, you see it a lot, especially with young dentists and assistants,
Yeah.
that they create that friendship relationship of oversharing, just like you said, and then it's very difficult to go back to a place of working dynamics,
Yeah.
of demanding the person to do certain things. Maybe I use the not demanding, but even asking the person to do certain things. It's so you cross a line that
Yeah.
then that it's very difficult for you to recover the work dynamic again. And I see it very often in the beginning, and then sometimes even when they, for example, change practice or they go work on another place, they say, I will not make the same mistake again. I will not have a friendship relationship with the assistants, because or you are very assertive and you have and you can really differentiate the things, so work and friendship, and you can maintain the work dynamic the same and be assertive with the person and still asking for the job to be done in a certain way and to but what I see most is that it's like you said, it's more easy to maintain when things don't mix up. And also what I see when there are when there are those kinds of relationships of someone that you can really see that there is a favorite in the team, um those imbalances that you were talking about, that the team will feel. I see sometimes the word resentment. It increases feelings
Yeah.
of resentment. So the other employees feeling that they also work the same, but they are not recognized
Yeah.
for that. So it can really, like, it can be one of the factors, for example, of a toxic environment. It can
Yes.
lead
Absolutely.
to what we it can link to the other episode of the alpha nurse. For example, sometimes an alpha nurse is an assistant that starts to be the favorite one, like,
Absolutely.
and by being the favorite one, she's doing things that she's the only one that the leader trusts to do those assignments. So it starts by that, and by having this real and balanced relationship, then it can really starts to have reflection on the rest of the team. That resentment will be felt in a very bad way.
Yeah.
Uh,
I was here taking some notes. One of the things that distinguishes the workplace from outside, from your regular friendship, your regular group of friendships that you choose, that you deliberately choose, or because you're neighbors or whatever. The problem is that in the work environment, you cannot just start to avoid them if something goes wrong. You just have to stick with them, right? Because you're working there. I mean, if something goes wrong with a friend, you can just eventually, okay, I'll just keep a little bit of distance for a while. Things are not very good, so let's stay apart for a few months. And sometimes that is enough, but that is just not possible in the working place, which means that everything is more exponential. Emotions, they become more exponential. You are in the working place, you are in a stressful place, you are under the guidance of the manager, of the boss, or whatever. So I think we have I think that in this particular situation, I think, and I was taking here a note that we can talk about later on, is how to prevent this. And I think there's nothing wrong with clearly talking about this in the first place, in the during the onboarding experience, making this part of the culture. And we can talk about later on. But yes, the problem is that you can't get back, right? You can't get back to the original place where you were. You cannot all of a sudden start to avoid the person because you have to go to work. And sometimes this is a huge source of stress. For example, I'm thinking about one of the students that we have in our course, and of course, I'm not going to name, um, but she was telling us that one of the reasons that she wants to leave the practice is I don't know if she started to be a friend of that person or not, but there was just some colleague, I think it was a nurse or something, that she just didn't get along with, and that was the main reason for her to leave the practice. And we see this more and more often today because I think people want to have a healthy working environment, and whenever something goes wrong with one particular person and that thing is just you just cannot change that, or you just don't feel that there's no one that you can talk about that within the organization, within the team, then that is a very typical reason why people want to leave the practice, for example.
Yeah, I think that that nowadays we get this separation because I think that before it was more like that like you should treat your team like family. It's
Yes, exactly.
and nowadays you know that that's not the right way, because otherwise you might get all of the situations that we were just talking about, and that you cannot really hold the person accountable because of that. So just because you don't have this family relationship with the person, that you don't develop a friendship with the person, that you don't overshare about your life, that doesn't mean that you don't respect the person, that you don't have a good relationship
Absolutely.
with the person.
Absolutely.
So I think that this notion that the your team is not your family, your colleagues
Yes.
are not your family. It's very important, and it's not
Mhm.
because of that you don't have a good relationship with them. But I think that uh, uh, what you said is very important for that to be talked on the onboarding, for people to know what to expect, what's the team culture, and for those boundaries to be very very clear. I think that's very 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 important, because then you also can have some guidelines to assess yourself. We talk a lot about this. We talk a lot about self-awareness, and it's
Mhm.
the root. It's the root of everything. And I think that for you to be able to not fall into this trap of family and friendship in the
Yeah.
workplace, you have to be able to bring some assessment to your behavior, and how you are conducting your relationships in the workplace. And I think that nowadays, if you have and we did an episode already on the onboarding, if you have all of this very clear from the beginning,
Mhm.
it's much easier. If you say from the beginning, we are not a family here,
Yeah.
and you
Yes.
explain why. Yeah.
Yes, yes, absolutely. The problem is that some people feel uncomfortable saying that, oh, it's gonna look like I'm a bit being a bit cold. And when I was here searching for the one of the operating principles that we have, I mean, in the course we talk about the strategic objectives that are usually 10, which basically sets the culture, right? And then we have about 30 operational principles, and then we have basically one written process for each process. So that there's an infinite number of processes. There are 10 strategic objectives, and there are about 30 operational principles. So the strategic objectives, like the culture, and then the operational principles. One of them is number 14, actually. We are not family, but we respect each other. We know that friendships in the workplace can create imbalances that are difficult to solve, and we are aware of that. So it's difficult to give proper guidelines to this, right? But and it's going to be a little bit odd, right, to tell someone, look, I don't we don't want you to create a friendship here. That's I mean, that's not even healthy, and that's never gonna happen, right? And it sounds a little bit cold, but just in the beginning, tell him, look, uh, this is a stressful environment. We are here to respect each other, to help each other, but we understand that creating friendships here in the workplace, it's not that they cannot happen, but they will create some issues. They might create some issues that are difficult to solve. I think this in itself, I'm not saying this is going to prevent anything, but at least a person is aware that the team or the practice is not promoting this sort of behavior, that everybody are just wonderful friends of each other and stuff like that. Because this really can create issues. And you were right when you said that this, especially with young people. Why? Because older people in their 30s, in their 40s, they got burned before, right? They got burned before, and they know that they usually try not to make this mistake. But it's very easy, and sometimes for some people, working is all the and this is also an issue, right? For some people, the working relationships are are some of the very few that are able to develop, right? Because or for some reason they just don't have a group of friends. They are very shy people. They are
And sometimes
introverts.
they even spend more time at work than at home.
Absolutely, absolutely, that's very typical, right? So I don't think that um we should be trying to avoid that this happens actively. It's impossible, right? I'm not even
Possible.
saying it's impossible, and I'm not even saying that you should directly tell people, look, I don't want you here to be friends of here, because I've seen in some practices, for example, and this is an example of someone that told me that the owner would prohibit people of interacting with each other during the lunchtime, which is just stupid. This is completely stupid.
But
This happens.
I
Stuff like this
I hope
happens.
that people that are listening to us don't interpret it as like saying, no, you cannot have friends, you cannot be friends. I actually what we are saying is we started by saying it's human nature. You will connect more with more with some colleagues or some assistants with the others. You just have to be self-aware that that doesn't reflect on your work. That doesn't create an imbalanced
Yeah.
relationship on your work, and you have
If it
to be aware of what's going on.
And if things go wrong, it's difficult to just stop that relation, because if you have a friendship with someone that you don't like, or something goes wrong, you just can just cut it or just give it time. But otherwise, it's just not possible. So in terms of how to prevent it, I think that talking clearly about it without judgment, I think it's the way to go. And I have let me give you an example. This is interesting because this happened last week, actually. I'm selling my practice to two of my associates, right? And we are in the transition now. We are in the transition stage, and basically, there are a lot of things that are going on between me and them in terms of talks about how should. One thing is to get the deal, right, the conditions, the financial conditions. That's one thing, right? The other thing is the transition, and how can the transition be as smooth as possible so that everybody understands what we are talking about, um, so that people don't get overreactive. Oh, he's going to sell the practice. Things are going to be different, and this and that. And I told them, look, let me tell you what is going to happen, and this is what's going to happen. Now, what happened is that, and they told me, look, we don't have a friendship relationship with any of the nurses. Okay, I said, okay, you don't have. but I am sure they feel more comfortable talking to you or complaining to you about me than otherwise, right? And they say, well, yeah, eventually, yes, but things are going to change because I'm going to keep working in the practice, and now you will be the bosses. And and people that you eventually think, and I was not even thinking about any particular relationship that, but people that you may eventually be close now, your relationship will have to change because now you are paying their salary, right? So I think, and at least addressing these issues, not judging them, but addressing these issues. Look, you really have to change your attitude. Another example. Let me give you another example. One of the nurses gets promoted to manager, right? Now, a lot of things can go wrong here. Why? Because I'm sure that some of the nurses are closer to to the new manager, and it gets difficult. It just gets difficult. And whenever and one of my nurses is a manager, and I told her in the first place, this was from day one. Look, but the good thing is also that she started to work about six months, 1 year. And when I promoted her to manager because the others didn't want to be a manager, I told her, look, are you aware that some of your colleagues will not like you? Are you aware of that? She says, yes. Are you aware that people might not like you? Yes. Are you aware that sometimes relationships, friendship relations will be jeopardized because of this? Yes, I am. So okay, so if you are aware of that and if you can handle that, that's good. I think that just acknowledging the issue, I think is the is it's important, right? It doesn't mean that's not going to be some issues, because I mean it's human nature. You place some people inside four walls for 8 hours a day for a few weeks, for months, for years, and it's difficult. We know it's difficult, but I think that addressing these issues, I think it's very important, and addressing these issues in the whole team. Look, this person was a nurse, now she's a manager, and I am aware that this can create some imbalances, and there's nothing wrong about of talking about this. I think that the worst thing is placing your head in the ground and believing that these things are just not going to happen, or these are just taboo questions, or these are taboo issues that you should not talk about. And I think this is wrong. I think that you should place the cards on the table and tell, look, this kind of things might happen, and you should just be careful. Now, if an issue arises because some of the working colleagues have friendships with some others, and you believe that's creating some sort of imbalance because someone is covering up the other, or they were very typical. They were amazing friends. They cannot see each other. It just these things can happen. If you see that, I think that the best way would be to have a private conversation with both of them or with the group. That's what I believe. I don't think you should be exposing the situation to the whole team. You can talk generically, but if you really have an issue that has been a consequence of favorites within the team, that's a group of people, they had favorites within the team, I think you should address them in person, and avoid to talk about that to the whole team. Yeah.
Mhm. I also think that you should, if you have that self awareness that we were talking before, so if you understand the risks of having a favorite, and if you are aware that you have a more connection with the team member than with the other, you should make an effort to be inclusive and to get along with all the people, because there are persons that are more that they speak less, that they are more reserved. So you should
Yes.
take that in consideration also, and to
Yes.
integrate all people in the team. Also, yeah, with that, also the fact that you should take in consideration that we all have different personalities. So we should, I mean, we are not all the same. And also recognize great work in a regular basis, also, because sometimes in dental practices we only recognize the bad things. So we talk a lot about what went bad, it also recognize when there is great work in a regular basis. That's also good for a team to feel united. And I also think that, and I think that this is one of the things that you speak a lot in our course, and I know that you do that in your practice. I think that to make sure that you have a reward system that it's balanced and fair, and that everything is written, so that there are no excuses for people to feel that they are favorites. So if you have
Yeah.
this reward system really, and if you create a reward system that works on recognition of work, and you do that very well, and you explain that very well in the course, and you do that in your practice. I think that this is also a way for the team not to feel that there are favorites, because they will see that in the reward system. What do you think?
Yes, I think you touch lots of important points. Um, First of all, you talked about integrating the whole team, especially people that are slower or introverts. And this reminds me of something that sometimes, especially if you're a manager and or you're a boss, that it's, and again, we talked about this a million times, which is when you are to focus on the technical part, you will not be managing well the people, right? Because you are just, oh, you have like this big burden, which is to be the a technician in the practice and also to manage. But one of the big mistakes that I've done in the past, and that sometimes I still do, is I am sometimes too tired to look at the most vulnerable team members. And for example, this is very typical when you are giving a course. For example, if you are giving a course which I do very regularly, sometimes you follow a group of 10, 20 people, 10, 20 people for maybe 1 year. And because you are so focused on the whole group, you are so focused on the structure, on the overall structure, sometimes you forget to have a one-on-one conversation, or just to make sure that the people that no one is left behind. And I'm not saying that I've left anyone behind, but this is something that I really should improve. Sometimes because I think that a good teacher and a good manager is the one that understands that some people have limitations, some people are slower, and they should give a special attention to those people, so that no one feels left behind. And I think this is, again, if you have to do a lot of stuff in the organization, if you have to work as a dentist, if you have to work as an administrator, if you have to work as a manager, it's very typical to forget about this. And this is why, and this is one of the themes for the next episode, that I think that you should have a manager as soon as possible in your practice. Of course, you need a certain volume, you need a certain number of people to justify to have a manager, of course, but as soon as possible, I think this is really important. It does not need to be a full-time, it should be a part-time, because these persons, sometimes they have, you can clearly give them the goal of taking care of these issues. um and the other thing that I also do mistakes, which is recognize great work. And why? Because we are just too much focus on putting down fires on on the things that don't work. We try to fix what doesn't work, and we assume that the things that work, we forget to praise them. And this is one of the mistakes that I still do. And the reward systems, yes, and we talked about this many times. And for me, the reward is two things: money and time. Both of them are important. And I think that the time thing should be having healthy working hours. And and if you are listening to this, if you haven't listened to our episode, I think it's called Healthy Working Hours, right? You should listen to that, because this is really important. So time is important. One of the things that I did in my practice was they complained about leaving about spending half an hour cleaning the practice, and I said, okay, I'll just pay for a team to come in here and do the cleaning, so they can leave the practice without complete cleaning of the practice. But yes, the reward systems in terms of money, in terms of financial rewards, they seem to be fair, and the rules should be equal, and the rules should be fair, and they should be written, and they should be transparent, so that everybody understands what's going on, and the reward should be as a consequence of productivity or success, whatever you want to call it, of a process that eventually you believe it's not going well, so you just connect the performance on that task with some financial reward, and I think this is really critical. And the other thing, the second point, because so far we talked a lot about favorites and issues that happens within coworkers or within assistants. The other thing, and I think I'm very good at this, which is I'm very good. I'm good at this. I think so. Which is I don't think I have favorites in my team, and because I try to be very unbiased whenever I give in the meetings, and if I have to call someone, if I have to point out an issue with someone, I do it irrespectively of who they are, and sometimes that can be a little bit strange for some people because I try to I tend to be extremely direct, and I tend not to mix friendships, and I do this very often even with my working colleagues on the courses, with my doctors, not mine but the doctors that work with me, with the dentists, with the nurses. I tend to be, and sometimes this creates a little bit of a sense of unpredictability, and I'm not trying to say, I'm not saying this in a bad way, but yes, I am not predictable in terms of choosing someone or protecting someone in my practice. If I had to call out someone, I will do so irrespectively of who they are. And I think that the reason for that, what allows me to be like that, is that I nothing in my practice is based on things that are said. Everything is based on things that are written, and otherwise it's impossible to have this sort of behavior, because if you are not confident in what you are saying, if you are not confident that you are calling out someone because they did something wrong, and if you are not completely confident that they were aware that that was a mistake and they were aware of the consequences of of the mistake, if that is not written down, um, then it's very difficult for you to be unbiased. But I really think that every manager and every leader needs to be very impartial and unbiased regarding the team that they have with. I mean, of course, that if you work with your spouse or with your husband, I mean, it is what it is, right? But even so, I think that you should be as impartial as possible. I think, and I understand this is different, and I also understand this depends a lot on each other's personality. But it's just this is something that comes very natural to me. For example, it does not come very natural to me to recognize people. Sometimes I don't I don't think I do the right recognition of some of the people that work with me. But the one thing that I think I'm good at is I tend to be very unbiased and very impartial when I talk to people, and I think this is something that you have to that you if you don't have, and if you are a manager, or if you are the owner of the practice, you need to be impartial as much as possible. Yeah.
Sorry, I just didn't, and I don't understand why you say that that behavior from you creates instability. because you said or unpredictability that you said. Because I think
Unpredictable.
that it's the other way around. Because if you are like that, what you
Yeah,
see is what you get, and it's
yeah.
written, and you preach what you say. So that's, you understand. But you say, but then it creates why
Well,
unpredictability. Why?
no, I think it. I think that was not the right word to use. I said it creates unpredictability, not in a negative way. It just means that there is no predictability of me always calling out the same person
Ah,
or
okay.
always protecting the same
Ah,
person.
okay, okay,
Yes,
okay. So yeah,
you're
that
right.
is the result of not having favorites, of course. Okay,
Yes.
now I understand, because I understood it as like creating like instability or something, but I said no, but it's actually the other way around.
Yeah.
It's very,
I did.
if
I
that's
did
your way to
also.
act, it's going
Yeah.
to
I did.
pre-
I did
have a predictable
also
outcome. Yeah.
wanted to say that I am unpredictable in a negative way. That I can just explode all of a sudden. That's not the question. But I don't create predictability in a way that I'm always protecting someone or always calling
Mhm,
out someone.
mhm,
Yeah.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
But I think, and for me, I recognize this is something that comes natural to me. And for other people, I see this is very, very difficult.
I think it
I
has
see
to do with
this.
the self-awareness that we were talking. You have to be self-aware of what your behaviors.
Yeah,
You have to be able to look back on on your day, and to see what happened, and to make an analysis of what happened. You have to be able to lower your reactivity. You have
yeah,
so all those things that we already talked about. Of course, if you spend your day just putting out fires in automatic pilot, completely reacting to what the day throws at you, this is very, very difficult
yeah.
to do.
Yeah, and this is why, and I think that one of the I was saying that one of the well, one of the very important things if you are a practice owner is that you need to set time to management.
Time.
You
Yeah,
really, yes,
time.
you need to do that, and and I think that
Because even those things that you were saying, you about being more inclusive, about one-on-one meetings, about taking care of the
yeah,
ones that to make sure that no one was left behind, to praise the good work, all of those things, they are very nice in theory, but you need to have time to do them. I know that it's very hard in the dental practice, working 5 or 6 days a week, sometimes from 9 to 9, where people are overworked, where people are doing their best the way that they can. These are all words, and this is on theory. Everyone knows this, but this is very hard to do because it lacks time. If you are a dentist, a practice owner, at the same time you are the leader of that practice, at the same time you are full time working on the chair, it's very, very, very difficult. All of this needs time. That's and it doesn't exist.
yes,
You have to arrange it. You have to make it. You have to make
yeah,
it.
and one thing that I realized, and we I'm sure we can talk about that in one of the next episodes, is I wish I had hired a manager sooner. But you can say, well, but in the beginning you just cannot you cannot just pay a full-time manager. You are correct, but I think that as soon as possible you should have one of the older nurses or doing a management role 1 day a week or 2 days a week as soon as possible. Why is this important? One of the things that I realize that one of the techniques that I do now is I have this manager have a 1 hour meeting with with all the nurses every month or every 3 weeks, something like that. So the practice is closed for that hour in the morning from 9 to 10. There are no doctors, no patients. The phone, of course, rings, but all the nurses that are there and the manager, they have a meeting. So what do they talk about? They talk about things that the manager believes that need to be done. They go through, sometimes they have, they review some of the processes. Okay, let's talk today about the oral hygiene appointment. So, what should be done? Let's see if the protocol is still updated. Let's see there's some that we are doing that is not written down. They do that. And also, before having a manager, what I did was I wrote down stuff that I want to directly talk to them. And it's never easy because there's not enough time. There's never the right moment. And what I do now, I write to things, or sometimes I tell the manager, look, there's something wrong with this person or this or that. There's something wrong with this process. This is not being done. So I want you to talk about this on the meeting. And this creates this buffer, this this time, this space between your between what you want to solve as a owner and the nurses, and this creates this buffer, this space where someone with a different view and with probably more sensitivity, they are going to take care of the situation in what I believe to be a more productive way. And I think that's the whole goal, right? That's the whole goal. Because again, when you overreact, when you don't have time, and sometimes, let's be honest, you have a dozen of other things in your head at that day, and the way that you say it may not be the best for the nurses. Well, if you have a manager, um, then I think it's much easier. And this is one of the things that has been crossing my mind over the last weeks, and it's something that I think it's interesting to discuss in some of the next episodes
Mhm.
because it
Yeah.
really was eye-opening to me. This
Mhm.
process of having a middleman, basically.
Mhm. 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 Yeah, and we talk about that all the time. You should have a manager, or you have to reduce your chair work time. Otherwise, you cannot do both. Otherwise, it will be a big sometimes happy mess, but sometimes not so happy.
Yes. Yes. Most of the
Okay.
times, not that much happy,
No,
unfortunately.
no. And there anything else that you want to add?
Yeah, I think we covered very important
Mhm.
points in terms of making sure, especially if you're a manager, especially if you're a owner, making sure that you don't have favorites and making sure the whole team understands that.
Mhm.
If you are a coworker, also understand the issues that can eventually take place, and always remember that while in friendships outside work, you can always have some time off the relationship. If you are at work, there's no time off. You just have to stick with that person every single day, every single week after week. So be careful about that.
Yeah. Just reminding everyone that we have our course of conscious leadership. The next edition is going to happen in September, in October, sorry, in October,
Yes.
in Sagres. And just go to softbites.online and you have all the information there. And if you want to know a little bit more how to put in practice all of these things that we just talked about, um, just send us an email or a message, or just visit the website and you have all the information. And thank you so much for listening, and thank you, Jorge André.
Thank you, Manuela. Always good to catch up. See you next time.
See you on the next time. Bye bye.